In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NBA games happening on December 14, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Washington Wizards versus Indiana Pacers. Washington is still walking into this one short-handed with Chris Middleton, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, and Corey Kispert all sidelined. Indiana is not exactly fresh either, with Ben Shepherd, Aaron Nesmith, and Tyrese Halliburton ruled out again and Andrew Nembhard sitting in that awkward questionable bucket. The Wizards have been ice cold since opening night, no real way around that, but the near upset against the Cavaliers in their last game at least gives them something resembling momentum. They hung around in that one while missing 2 of their better players, which matters a bit when you are talking about a young roster that tends to ride emotion and confidence more than structure. Sometimes a game like that is less about the loss and more about proving to themselves that they can throw a punch against a serious team. On the other side, the Pacers open as hefty home favorites, and given their recent surge, that pricing does not come out of nowhere. They are slowly getting pieces back and have covered in 7 of their last 10, which hints that the market has not fully caught up to how competitive they have been lately. Even so, it is hard to shake the feeling that you are paying a tax here. This version of Indiana is still beat up in key spots, still trying to figure out who initiates late in games without Halliburton. And that is exactly when big spreads can get uncomfortable. Now, Washington is still bad. That part has not changed, and backing them never feels good when you click the button. But they have also covered 7 of their past 10 numbers, and they really should have closed the deal against Cleveland as 17-point underdogs. That combination, ugly team plus recent fight, is usually where you find some value because nobody is lining up to support them. A Pacers route would not surprise anyone, and if Indiana gets loose from 3 early, this could turn into a no-sweat favorite cover. But given the injuries and how fragile their offense can look without their star creator, trusting them to win by margin takes a bit of faith. So if you absolutely have to take a side, Washington plus the points looks like the more sensible way to attack it, even if you are holding your nose while you do it. As our first pick for this matchup, the Washington Wizards to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Wizards are averaging 112.5 points on 46.2% shooting while allowing a brutal 128.3 points on 48.8%. That gap tells you a lot, not just about talent, but about effort, execution, and how often possessions end in clean looks for the other team. They shoot a solid 37% from 3 and a shaky 75.1% at the line, so their own scoring tends to swing with outside variance and how locked in they are from deep on a given night. Defensively, that 38.3% allowed from beyond the arc paired with 42.4 rebounds per game paints a familiar picture. Missed box outs, late closeouts, and a lot of one-and-done or zero-and-done possessions against halfway competent offenses. For totals, that kind of profile is pretty much gasoline. Even on nights when their offense stalls, the defense usually keeps the door open for a high number because opponents do not have to work too hard to get quality shots. Indiana's statistical profile leans into the same theme, just with a slightly different flavor. The Pacers are at 111.3 points per game on 43.4% shooting while giving up 118.8 points on 47.7%. Their own three-point mark sits at 33.2%, which is not exactly flamethrower territory, but they get to 77.5% at the line and pull down 44 boards per game, so there is enough volume there for them to keep scoring even if the jumper is a bit off. On the other end, they allow only 33.4% from deep, which is respectable, but combined with the overall points allowed, it still signals long stretches of defensive slippage, breakdowns at the rim, and foul trouble gifting free throws. Put those profiles together and you get a matchup of two teams that struggle defensively far more than they struggle to score. One side bleeds points everywhere, the other is not far behind and is missing its key organizer, which can actually create more chaotic possessions, early clock shots, and turnovers that lead straight to transition chances both ways. It is not tidy basketball, but messy basketball is usually good news for an over, especially with both teams capable of hitting enough threes and free throws to keep the scoreboard moving. So while neither offense is perfectly efficient, the combination of pace, defensive issues, and shot quality on both ends makes a higher scoring outcome more likely than a grindy rock fight here. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Charlotte Hornets versus Cleveland Cavaliers. The Charlotte Hornets and Cleveland Cavaliers square off Sunday in NBA action at Rocket Arena. Charlotte is still rolling with a long injury list, with LaMelo Ball, Colin Sexton, Trey Mann, Grant Williams, and Pat Connaughton all out of the picture. Cleveland is not exactly healthy either, as Sam Merrill, Max Strus, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley have been ruled out again. It feels like both trainers should be getting hazard pay at this point. The Hornets did manage to get big performances from Knueppel and Bridges in their last outing, but even that was not enough to get past a slumping Bulls squad. That kind of result is pretty telling. When you get strong games from your main guys and still come up short, it shows how thin the margin is for this roster right now, especially on the road. So it really is no shock that Charlotte walks into this matchup as a heavy underdog away from home. Cleveland, for its part, is clearly not firing on all cylinders. The Cavaliers are banged up and playing below expectations, which we saw in that shaky win over the Wizards where they never quite put things to bed. The market, however, keeps treating them like the version from last season, the one people trusted in big favorite roles. That is where the tension comes in here. The Hornets are a bad team, no need to sugarcoat that, and a blowout loss is always in play with this group. But here is the thing, the Cavaliers remain an underachieving bunch with an against-the-spread record of 8-18 this season, which translates to a cover rate of only 30.7%. That is the worst cover mark in the league, and it is not a fluke at this point, it is a pattern. They are also just 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games as a double-digit favorite, and one of those failures was an outright loss to Portland a couple of weeks ago, which stings a bit more if you were on them. So while Cleveland should still be expected to take care of business at home on the scoreboard, the betting angle is a little different. Laying a pile of points with a team that keeps stumbling against the number and is still missing key pieces feels more like a leap of faith than a logical play. Charlotte is messy, but they are scrappy enough to hang around, and with the way the Cavs have been closing games, the back door feels very much open. Honestly, if you are grabbing a side, taking the Hornets plus the points and hoping they sneak through late makes more sense than trusting Cleveland to win big. As our first pick for this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Hornets are averaging 114.3 points on 45.3% shooting while allowing 118.3 points on 49.2%. Offensively, that is enough punch to keep them in most games on a pure scoring level, especially with that 34.2% mark from 3 and an impressive 82.4% at the free throw line. They do their part in terms of putting points up. The real problem, as usual, shows up on the other end. Charlotte is allowing opponents to shoot 39.3% from deep and giving up 44.6 rebounds per game, which often leads to long defensive stretches where they simply cannot get stops. Cleveland's profile is a bit different, but it still feeds into the total discussion. The Cavaliers are putting up 118.6 points on 45.9% shooting and giving up 115.4 points on 46.2%. They are hitting 34.3% from beyond the arc and 76.3% from the free throw line, while pulling down 44.8 rebounds per game. On paper, that looks like two teams with enough offense to create a high-scoring game, especially if both sides find their rhythm. Here is where the contradiction sneaks in a little. You look at those averages and the instinct is to lean toward a higher total. A lot of points allowed, plenty of points scored, shaky defense in spots. It all suggests a track meet. But in this particular matchup, the context can push things the other way. Heavy spreads often create game scripts where the favorite, if it controls the tempo and builds a comfortable lead, starts to slow things down, bleed clock, and lean more on half-court sets. At the same time, a short-handed underdog like Charlotte can have stretches where the offense stalls completely, especially if role players are pressed into larger roles for long minutes. Those dry spells, combined with slower late-game possessions, can drag the final number under even when the talent on the floor looks offensive-minded. So when you tie those pieces together, the scoring profile suggests this does not have to turn into a shootout. There is room for both teams to come in below their season averages, whether through fatigue, lineup inconsistency, or simple offensive inconsistency. That makes a lower final total more plausible than the raw stats might suggest at first glance. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Philadelphia 76ers versus Atlanta Hawks. The Philadelphia 76ers head into State Farm Arena on Sunday to take on the Atlanta Hawks in what feels like a medical report wrapped inside a basketball game. Philadelphia is still without Kelly Oubre Jr., Tyrese Maxey is listed as doubtful with an illness, and Joel Embiid sits in that familiar questionable zone on the injury report. On the other side, Atlanta has Kristaps Porzingis and Trae Young ruled out again, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker tagged as questionable as he deals with an ankle issue. So, yeah, both teams are walking in with more tape than rhythm. A couple of days ago, we finally got that Joel Embiid performance people had been waiting for. He dropped 39 points on the Pacers and dragged Philly to a 10-point win, looking like himself again for the first time this season. Then almost immediately, his name rolled right back onto the injury report, which pretty much sums up the Sixers' year. The talent is there, but the continuity just keeps getting undercut by injuries. Even so, they have managed to win 4 of their last 5 heading into this matchup, which quietly matters more than the day-to-day drama sometimes. Maxey being a game-time type of decision obviously swings the ceiling for the offense, but even without him, this group has shown they can scrape together enough guard play and wings to stay competitive. It is not always pretty, but they have been reliable against the number away from home, sitting on a 9-2 mark against the spread on the road, which is no small thing. That kind of consistency, especially in hostile buildings, suggests their underlying effort travels pretty well. Atlanta, meanwhile, has cooled off. The Hawks have dropped 4 of their last 5 and were just smashed by the Pistons 142-115, which is not exactly the kind of loss you brag about. The injury bug has been chewing on them too, with Porzingis and Young out and Alexander-Walker trying to play through his own issue. That leaves a lot on Jalen Johnson's shoulders. He has been fun, but relying on him as the primary engine night after night is a big ask. Add in the fact that Atlanta has only managed 4 home wins in 10 tries, and their supposed home edge feels a bit more theoretical than real right now. Let me explain why that nudges the lean toward Philadelphia. With so many key names either out or in limbo, it is hard to project some kind of clean, dominant effort from the Hawks. The Sixers, for all their own uncertainty, are actually the team bringing better current form, steadier road performances, and more ways to patch together offense if one star sits. It feels like one of those spots where the underdog is not that far behind in overall quality, especially in this wounded version of the matchup. So taking the points with the Sixers has some quiet logic to it. A close game that tilts either way late is more likely than a blowout, and that kind of script usually favors the team catching the spread. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The 76ers are putting up 116.9 points per game on 45.6% shooting while giving up 116.1 points on 46.4% from the field. From deep, they are hitting 36.2% of their threes and knocking down 81.5% at the free throw line, which is a big deal when you are talking about totals because it means empty trips are limited once they get to the stripe. They are also grabbing 45 rebounds per game, which helps keep extra possessions alive and creates more chances for putbacks and kick-out threes. Even on nights when the offense looks clunky, those numbers give them a pretty high-scoring floor. Defensively, allowing that 116.1 per game on solid percentages suggests a pattern. They can string together stops in stretches, but they also give up clean looks and free throws often enough that opponents rarely feel completely shut down. That sort of good but not oppressive defense usually pushes games into the kind of range where one hot quarter from either side can bust a total. Atlanta's numbers are just as friendly for points. The Hawks average 118 points per outing on 48.5% shooting and allow 116.5 points on 46.9%. They are hitting 36.9% from 3 and 78.5% at the line while pulling in 41.8 rebounds per game. The profile is pretty clear. They score efficiently, they give up plenty, and there are long stretches where everything seems to be decided in transition or early in the shot clock. Here is the thing, the Hawks like to play fast and they struggle on defense, especially when opponents get them scrambling in transition. Both teams lean heavily on threes and free throws, which are exactly the kind of scoring sources that make totals climb in a hurry. One quick burst of makes from the arc or a parade to the line can swing a game total by 20 points in what feels like 5 minutes. If you look back at the first meeting, that one turned into a wild double overtime game with 276 total points on the board. The current projected total sitting roughly 50 points lower tells you how much the market is baking in all these injuries and minutes limits. It makes sense on one level. Less star power usually means a little more uncertainty, sometimes a little less efficiency, but it does not automatically mean slow or low scoring. In this specific matchup, the tempo, the reliance on perimeter shooting, and the overall defensive issues on both sides still lean toward a game that has long runs of high pace and trading buckets. Philly has also been trending that way lately, with an 8-2-0 record toward the over in their last 10. That is not some ironclad guarantee, but it does show a pattern where their games are more often landing in the higher scoring bucket than not, especially with this current roster build that leans on perimeter creation and multiple scoring options. Put their offensive ceiling together with Atlanta's speed and defensive problems, and you get a pretty reasonable case for points. Even with both teams missing important names, this shapes up more like an up-tempo, free-flowing Eastern Conference game than a grinding half-court slog. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Milwaukee Bucks versus Brooklyn Nets. The Milwaukee Bucks head into Barclays Center on Sunday night to take on the Brooklyn Nets, and somehow this matchup feels both ugly and kind of fascinating at the same time. Milwaukee is still without Giannis Antetokounmpo, AJ Green, and Taurean Prince, so you are not getting the full version of this roster. That helps explain why the Bucks were stuck in such a rough slump before that surprise upset over the red-hot Celtics on Thursday. One good win does not magically fix weeks of shaky play, so it is pretty reasonable to still have a trust issue with them. The funny part is you can say almost the exact same thing about Brooklyn. The Nets opened the season absolutely freezing, then suddenly started to show a pulse over the last 5 games, with Porter Jr. catching fire and carrying a big chunk of their scoring load. That improvement is real enough to notice, but it does not erase how low the baseline was. When a team has to claw its way out from the bottom, every step forward looks bigger than it probably is. Here is the thing, even with all the drama and the missing star, this line feels disrespectful to Milwaukee. The Nets are right there with the Wizards in the conversation for worst team in the league, and home court has not really bailed them out. Only 2 of their 6 wins have come at home, which tells you the building is not exactly a fortress. The Bucks, on the other hand, finally grabbed a statement win over Boston, and that kind of result can give a locker room a much-needed jolt of belief, especially after a rough stretch. Yes, the Bucks are dealing with trade rumors and a lot of noise around the team, and yes, rolling without Antetokounmpo always takes away their margin for error. But we are talking about laying less than a bucket against a Nets group that regularly struggles to defend, struggles to score for long stretches, and has not shown they can sustain success even when Porter Jr. is hot. It feels like the market is reacting to Milwaukee's slump more than weighing the actual gap in talent and structure between these 2 rosters. So, when you step back from the emotion and look at it in a calm way, it is pretty simple. One side is a flawed contender learning to survive without its star for now. The other is a rebuilding team still trying to figure out who and what it is. In that kind of spot, taking the healthier culture and the better overall roster, even on the road, makes more sense than overthinking it. Honestly, you and a couple of your friends are not walking into Barclays and beating the Nets, but the way this number is set, it almost feels like the books are asking you to pretend that you could. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Bucks are averaging 115.1 points per game on a sharp 49.1% from the field while allowing 118 points on 47.4% shooting. From beyond the arc, they are hitting a scorching 40.9%, which is elite territory, but they stumble a bit at the free throw line at 71.4%. They are pulling in 39.4 rebounds per game, so there are enough extra chances for second looks and kickouts. All of that adds up to a team that can pile up points quickly whenever the perimeter shots are falling, even if the defense leaks on the other end. On defense, allowing 36.1% from 3 and that 118 points per game suggests a lot of high possession games. The Bucks might get stops and bursts, but across 48 minutes their opponents are still walking into clean looks and comfortable rhythm too often. From a totals perspective, that kind of profile tends to push games into the higher scoring range because both sides usually feel like they can get the shot they want. Brooklyn's numbers point in the same direction. The Nets are putting up 109.5 points on 44.5% shooting and allowing 117.3 points on 49.5%. They are hitting 34.1% from deep and 77.9% at the line, grabbing 39.8 rebounds per game. So while their offense is not as efficient as Milwaukee's, it is still good enough to take advantage of soft spots, especially when the ball moves and Porter Jr. is rolling. On the other side, giving up almost 117 points on nearly 50% shooting is a clear sign of a defense that bends early and then breaks late more often than it should. Put those profiles together and you get two teams that are far more comfortable trading buckets than grinding out stops. Even without Giannis, Milwaukee leans heavily on spacing, quick decisions, and perimeter shooting, and that style often leads to quicker possessions and more total shots. Brooklyn's defense rarely drags things into a slow, half-court slog, and their own need to keep up on the scoreboard usually means they are willing to play at a pace that invites more scoring. So while the Bucks' poor free throw percentage can occasionally cap how high their totals go, the combo of elite three-point shooting on one side and leaky defense on both sides sets the stage for a game where the scoreboard keeps moving. One strong quarter from Milwaukee from deep or one extended run where Brooklyn finally finds some rhythm can swing things well above a typical number. With both teams having statistical profiles that tilt toward offense and defensive questions, a higher scoring outcome makes more sense than a slow, low-scoring rock fight here. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.